This is the Knilly and PB podcast. In this weekly series, we're reading Twilight because I've never read it and PB wants to send memes. I'm Knilly.
I'm PB.
And today we're here to talk about chapters 10 through 13. I messed it up when I was talking about it all week, thinking that it was 10 through 12 because we were doing it in threes. But this is actually 4 chapters because it need a little bit more meat on the bone. A little bit more meat on the bone.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit more.
Meat on the bone or
meat on the bone, and I looked at our notes and I saw meat features. First word.
Meat features, and by meat we mean Google Meet. But anyway, or instead of maybe meat on the bone, should I say sparkle on the skin?
Oh my god.
You hate to hear it.
You hate to hear it.
All right,
and
go ahead.
Emphasize the fact that we're no longer going 3 chapters at a time. Pretty much until the end of the book, this is not 3 chapters at a time.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, so please do pay attention if you're reading along with us to the chapter list.
Yep.
Because next time it's going to be 14 to 18, I think.
I believe so.
Yeah, so if you're following along, that's what we're reading next time.
Yeah, and don't forget, you can always, if you're reading along and have anything you want to ask us or any thoughts or memes yourself that you want to share, please keep them spoiler free or add a spoiler tag if you're in our Discord, !Discord if you're in my Twitch chat. But if you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the doobly-doo, in the description below. So yeah, we would love to hear from y'all about what y'all are thinking. If you've read it before, if you haven't read it before, or if you just want to, if you're an Uber fan and just want to yell at us about it too, that's fine. That's cool. Oh, so shall we get into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
We'll do it. I think the biggest theme across all these chapters is that Bella should be scared. She should be scared.
But she's not.
But she's not. Because she believes. She can't leave him.
Believes. Well, that's like the interesting debate, right? Like, is it Bella just feeling this way? Or is it like this supernatural pull that she's feeling? Because although this is unique for both of them, we find out.
Yeah.
This is also, is it just like, are we trying to imply like a soulmate thing here? Are we trying to imply, because then we find out that Emmett has felt this sort of pull towards other people, although
it doesn't end so well.
Yeah, it doesn't end so well for the other people. So it's just like, what are we trying to imply here? And I think a lot of Stephanie's writing, especially in this first book, might seem read through might seem a little bit inconsistent almost in the way, like in messaging as to what she's trying to say, what she's trying to imply. But going through it in the second read through, I think it's a little bit more cerebral than that. There's a little bit more that's going on. Whether or not it's planned by Stephanie Meyer, is between Stephanie Meyer and the Twilight series. But reading through it again, I'm just like, oh, maybe it's because of these other things that, are talked about in later books. But yeah, so that is a thing to keep in mind. It was just like, is this Bella just truly having zero survival instinct and just attracting danger to her like nobody's business? Or is this somehow a supernatural reasoning to why she's doing such things?
Yeah, and it kind of, I think I mentioned this in like either episode 2 or I said episode 2, or is it like, was it ARC episode 0 that we haven't released yet, but will be coming to a YouTube near you? I mentioned before that like some of the power sets of like vampires that from other fiction is like enthralling people, and not necessarily like biting to enthrall them, but just like their charming abilities, which we see this like charming thing happening, maybe not necessarily like a power, but at least through his good looks, allegedly.
Yeah.
But then that also kind of makes you question like the way that this relationship has really skyrocketed. And just in general, how she's like, she keeps admitting like, I just can't. And I'm like, but you're aware, but can you really not? Like, so it's an interesting, I don't want to say it's an interesting take on that, because I don't know if it's intended or not, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, that does like track with like other vampire fiction and stuff like that. So it has me like also like questioning it a lot too. I mean, you also just want to sometimes be a hopeless romantic, but as we'll get into it, according to our notes, which I wrote my notes down this time, so PB and I compared, and we laughed before the show about how similar our notes are. We could be a hopeless romantic, but we can still be incredibly cringe. So
Yeah. It's just like it's such an, like I said, it's very interesting reading this, because what we find out as we're reading through these 4 chapters is we really start to see Edward's personality develop in a way that we haven't seen in the previous 13 chapters. Just because I guess Edward's very restrained, very much just like on a like holding on to a tightrope the entire time, which we'll find is just Edward's personality. I don't know why we're trying to make it something it's not in this in these series of chapters. Because he's like this the entire series. He's
yeah,
very much high strung the entire time, which I guess, in Edward's defense, I would assume it's very difficult to function normally when you want to eat in a not fun way your beloved, like
yeah.
so.
Just giving the forbidden. Don't want to give your favorite thing in the world, quote unquote, of the forbidden hickey.
Oh my gosh.
um
But let's start unless you have anything to add.
no,
Let's
I'm
start
good.
off.
That's just like that's kind of is like my one my one quote dot to start us off from the beginning of like this section is like healthy dose of fear. So I figured that's kind of like the theme of these chapters. But yeah, if you want to move on to the next thing.
It is again to note that this book was written 2004, 2005, maybe even earlier. Who knows? Stephanie could be lying to us as to how long it took us to for her to write this book. Um, but it is a preface we gave at the beginning of starting these books. But these were written of the time in the 2000s when we had a much more loose control of language. We were a lot less educated as a whole in the United States. So there's a lot of yikes language
Mm-hmm.
in this series. And we had a moment like that in right at the beginning, pretty much. In a moment where Bella was talking about how clumsy she was. She then compared herself to someone who was just disabled,
Yeah.
is I believe the exact quote. So obviously, huge yikes. That's a total not an okay thing to say. In
Nope.
fact, ableist.
Yeah, incredibly
So
ableist.
but we have to keep in mind that we are reading something from the early 2000s, and as yikes as that language is, the 2000s language was pretty yikes. So
Yeah.
just wanted to address that
Yeah,
early on.
like I'm not, yeah, well, I'm not perfect. I've definitely said shit like that when I was younger, but again, ignorance and not knowing better. When it's used maliciously is the when we are really going to scrutinize it. We can scrutinize it a little bit here, but not like it's can't yuck our yum right now, I guess.
Yeah. But just to continue going on reading through this series with that in mind.
Yeah.
And speaking of archaic things,
My favorite thing. It's the freaking VCR that rolls in for biology, where they watch a series on, we don't even know because Bella doesn't know, because she is just all up in her feelings, and this weird, what is this, what did I write here, this, I wrote, my note is the Spidey tingle, but they have this electric energy between them.
Yeah, and
Weird sexual, not sexual tension.
Right? So it's funny. When I was reading your notes, I was like, "Oh, right, that's a thing," because so much of the series is what happened in description-wise in the relationship between Bella and Edward is so much exactly what happens in these chapters. Just like this weird Victorian yearning between both of them.
Yeah.
Um, that's what it's just like, and that's just how it's described the entire series. So for me, I'm just so like jaded to the entire experience. But reading through your notes, seeing like the Spidey tingle, the electric thing, feeling, etc., etc. I was just like, oh right, that is something that is unique to this moment, huh?
Yeah.
That is a thing.
I mean, that
And
whole
for me, it's
like
oh, whatever.
Victorian writing yearning definitely comes out in this like picturesque scene and series of events that happens in the meadow in that like the last chapter of our section, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I'm like, okay, now you're just wishing you were Jane Eyre or like or Charlotte Bronte right now. Steph Myers, like, you wish. I'm sorry, but you wish.
Oh my god. Speaking of just like older writing, um Bella describes one of Edward's smiles as one side of his mouth pulled up into my favorite uneven smile. And now I know that it's like almost a faux pas nowadays. It is just like
It's so
looked down upon
smarmy.
to write
Yeah.
smirk as a description of how someone is smiling at you or the facial shape they're making. But like I would prefer someone write smirk to
Yeah.
one side of his mouth pulled up into my favorite uneven smile. Like, get out of here. You're smirking. You were
Yeah.
trying to meet a quota of words. That's
Yeah.
what you're doing.
Because like smirking can be coy, can be flirty, and it can also be like a little bit of a red flag depending on the situation. But when you write it as uneven smile, that just comes off as like smarmy and gross.
Yeah, I'm just like, come on. We're better than that.
Yeah, I
Um,
can't.
and this was even before people had looked down upon the word smirk. So you have no excuse, Stephanie. What is this?
Yup. Oh my god. There was actually no food mentions in these upcoming chapters. However, I have highlighted a car mention because we have to highlight every car and food mention.
Yup.
And I believe Edward is talking about which sister's car is it?
Rosalie.
Rosalie's car. What kind of car? I asked. An M3. And I read that. I'm like, oh shit, girls ballin'. That's actually like a nicer car. I don't think it's like super like the peak, but like my cousin was like one of his chase cars was an M3. So like I read that and I was like, okay. Then like I don't speak car and drivers. Like it's a BMW. I'm like, yeah, it's a Beamer. It's a Beamer. It's a nice Beamer. But yeah, wow. Nothing other than the Volvo. And yeah, this is definitely an ostentatious car, at least like in the context of like every other car that exists in Forks, Washington.
I also want you to know that this car is 100% the car I would drive in my in like Need for Speed.
Oh yeah.
One of the first cars, drove really nicely. And also I
It's a good car.
uploaded a photo of it over on podcast chat in the Discord if you guys are interested.
Yeah.
Straight from Stephanie Meyer's website.
Yeah. It's a great car. My cousin was chasing this car, but also my ex's mom had this car, so it also could be a mom in a midlife crisis car.
Your connections to all these cars, Knilly. Who knew you were such a car person?
Who knew? I don't even own a car. In fact, people prefer I not drive, but that's for like other reasons. Even though I used to be like the driver in high school. But moving to the city, you don't drive as much. And while it's like riding a bike, that doesn't mean you're well practiced. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, so she has this beautiful, ostentatious car that all the boys are drooling over later in this chapter.
Oh my god. And also, like, they'd be drooling over that, and also, like, apparently she's definitely, like, one of the prettier girls at school, too, because she's a freaking porcelain vampire like the rest of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, she's a colon, so, and a vampire.
Yeah.
So she's absolutely gorgeous. So, and we find out, that, I mean, even though Rosalie, I'm sure, is hot AF, um, we learn that every boy in this school was just like having thoughts about Bella as soon as she came to this school. And now I talked about this earlier. I made it as a joke before and did not realize this was coming up. That Bella was like a Washington 10.
Yep.
And it just gets proven here. And I love that because like we talked about last time, that Bella is so just self-loathing about herself and her relationships, and I'm just like, Bella, literally everyone is like falling over themselves to ask you out, and now but you're just like, oh, Edward's never gonna like me because I'm so boring, I'm so plain, I'm so ordinary. I'm just like, babe, I need you to chill the fuck out.
My gosh, like, I mean,
It's
on
it's
one
relatable, but just like,
yeah, it's relatable and shut up. Yeah, it's like a mix of, like, yes, I get it, the imposter syndrome, not feeling good enough, and like putting yourself down, and I guess it's also part of, like, again, like, we're so in tune with, like, in like today with like how we feel about our bodies and just like body positivity in general, that we're also like seeing it through this lens of like, Bella, you're fine, you're pretty, you're a pretty albino girl who doesn't know what she's worth, you're fine, love yourself, babe. So it's like, I think part of our like, oh, is coming from there. But yeah, I definitely felt like this as a teen too, like, no one's gonna like me, no one has crushes on me. So.
No, but like, can we talk about, I don't know if this happened to you after you left high school, but when I left high school, I had a bunch of guys hit me up after the fact, being just like, oh yeah, I really liked you in high school. I'm just like, you could have said that when we were in high school. Do you know how much just like time I languished in the fact that I was not dating anyone or I was single? Like, you could have just said literally anything.
For sure.
But now we're here after the fact with you telling me this, and I'm just like, wow, where does this get us anything?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. That didn't happen to me in high school, like leaving high school. But let me just say that like this again, I think I mentioned this like episode 1, but this whole like triangle of people, like, this happened to me in college, but also I will preface, I went to a college where there was like 20% women. So it was also kind of just like, you know, supply and demand.
No. But you also went to school in a very populated place.
I know. It's fun. It's
you wanted you.
No, we're not. No,
I'm 20%.
I'm the 20%.
They were just they were just like, no, Knilly, interesting and very attractive. I want to know her more and date her.
It was very funny. It's a very funny story. Maybe I'll tell it another time, but not right now. Oh my god. But yeah, it was just such a thing. That like I sometimes feel like with the way that like I read and then I superimposing that like all of the like I'm picturing the like my classes at school where it is still mostly like dudes or like people are so awkward, because like Forks feels like an awkward place, you know.
Absolutely.
It's very small town and super awkward. And so that was just most of my classes. Sure, my school probably has a population bigger than Forks, but like my college, sorry, my high school did not. But oh my god. But yeah. Speaking of boys, moving on to like Bella, I don't know how much we've gotten, but she's like trying to reconfigure her plan so she still doesn't have to go to the dance, but doesn't obligate herself to go to Seattle so her dad doesn't worry, but still wants to hang out with Edward. And her dad is like are you sure you can't go to the dance? Because like I think he really wants her to, you know, be part of the community and stuff like that. But he's like, didn't anyone ask you? And it's like, it's a girl's choice, Dad. Like, chill. And he's like, oh, okay. I like that she puts her dad kind of like it, like just a reminder, not really a put in place moment, but just like a reminder, hey. But also like her dad just kind of like leaves it at that. I'm so glad he doesn't push it. I think it's like also like reiterated by the fact that he's like, he says at a certain point, I forget which chapter this is, like, you're so easy to live with, Belle, because of like they have like he wants to be like, oh, if you're not going, do you want to hang out like to Seattle or whatever? It's like, no, go fishing, you made plans. And like they have like, I don't know if it's like either healthy boundaries or just disattached like father-daughter thing, but they were also just like separated anyway for a long while. So I don't know. I find that fascinating, and I think it's both cool and like a little bit of like a yellow flag.
Oh, for sure. It is because as a teenager, I was reading this. I'm like, oh, Charlie's such a cool dad,
Yeah.
leaving Bella alone. Because that's all you want as a teenager. You just
Yep.
want to be left alone to your own devices and like to, you know, play adult. That's all you want as a teenager. And but as an adult reading that sort of thing, it's like, no. Teenagehood is like the most formative years of your life. It is how you learn so many things, and it's a good time for you to make all these mistakes, and with the comfort of knowing that your parental figure is going to be there to back you up and catch you after you make these terrible mistakes. And the fact that Charlie, I'm sure he does some things that we don't read, you know, that aren't explicitly told to us.
Yeah.
Maybe things that are supposed to be implied, but due to the lack of it ever being talked about, we only ever talk about how Charlie's never home. I'm just like, that's not it. Like, and Bella has like two so opposite parents that are almost exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because Renee is so self-involved. She is so, I wouldn't go as far to say as narcissistic, but she is so just worried about herself and her what she gains out of a situation. And it's this like great desire to be free of all societal like ties that include, I have to assume, being a parent and parenting Bella, and trying to give that to Bella, probably something that she herself no longer has, and which also is just a very detached parenting style. And then Charlie, who is so isolating, um or such an isolationist, that he like, I wouldn't say pushes that on Bella, because I think they both prefer this. At least that's what Charlie thinks. I don't think you should have such a detached style when you're being a parent.
Yeah.
I feel that could be damaging to the child. Um, but also the same thing of just like being just so involved with himself, despite, you know, not having Bella for so long. I feel like that's something you should work to develop as
Yeah,
Charlie.
for
And
sure.
we'll see how that becomes an issue in later books, which is why I'm so anti-Charlie.
Dang.
It's
Semi
like, no.
spoiler alert. Not
It's like,
really.
it's like, I may not like Renee. Renee is such a red flag human being to me. But
Mhm.
Charlie, when I first read this, I was just like, oh, Charlie's so cool, except for like these super uncool moments. But that's just being a parent. And parents are just so uncool and such buzzkills. But now reading it as an adult, I'm just like, no, Charlie's a fucking red flag. That's what he is. But
Y'all.
those are just my 2 cents on the parents. But yeah, so every time I read that, I'm just like, come on, Charlie, be a little bit more hands-on. Like,
Yeah.
you can't just have these moments of just like, oh, you're a great kid. And then that's the end of your parenting, because that's not parenting. You're not
Yeah.
parenting anybody. Um, but anyways, that's those are my feelings there.
Oh my gosh. So we have that. Let's see. Washington State 10. Oh yeah. So we also get to this point where like I also am like starting to blur. These chapters were kind of a blur together because not much happened. Because it was a lot of like Ed word. I don't know. Do we ever call him Ed?
No.
Wow. Weird.
This.
Okay.
It's only
Edward. Edward. We did, and I talked about how I'm starting to call my brother Ed. But anyway, Where Edward is like driving her to school and hanging out all the time. And like my favorite is like they're talking about colors, and then Bella's like, today, I guess today my favorite color is brown. And he's like, oh yeah, I guess brown is warm, whatever, because like she's describing. I'm like, wow, Edward's a pumpkin spice fall girly. We love that. And or just a people pleaser so that like he can like the same thing as Bella.
Well, because like they're doing the high school, so a lot of this blurs together, I think.
Yeah,
because it's so high school. It's so painfully high school. Reading this, I'm just like, I am reliving my high school days reading this. It's just so much just like of that like flirting when you're a teenager is what this is. Where like you kind of don't exactly know what you're doing. You just know you're trying something. And if it works, it doesn't work. And because we have this like moment of Edward can't read Bella's mind, we get to see that awkward flirting phase and just like I like you, but like I don't know how to like tell you phase.
Yeah.
From Edward, because it's just like, do you like this? Because I like this, but I don't know if you like this. And if you don't like this, I you know, I'm okay to not like this also. So instead what you do is you play 20 questions, right? And that's basically what they're doing. They're just alternating days where they can ask each other all these questions, which is how the brown color is brought up, because Bella is such a so enthralled by Edward that it's like, oh, my favorite color like changes. It depends on the day. And it's like, oh, what's your favorite color? It's brown. And it's like, really, brown? It's like, yeah. And it's like, because everything here is so green, it should be brown. And it's like, I guess brown is warm. I'm just
my
like,
god,
geez.
all of that. I'm like, I like, it's weird because I like hated a lot of these conversations they had because it felt like, it felt exactly like that. I'm like, oh my god, this is like weirdly small talk, and you're both not interesting right now, but also one of you is in high school and one of you is 100 years, maybe a couple 100 years old, because we still don't know. He's just been 17 for a while, is what we're getting. I don't know. I feel like there could be some more interesting questions. Like, they both like classical music. Maybe you could have a little bit of a more engaging conversation around that.
Well, they ask each other. Edward apparently just does not stop out. Is so interested in Bella and everything about Bella. And what, Edward is so curious about, whether it's just this fact that he can't read her mind, and this is, that's what makes her so interesting, versus, which is a conversation that will be continued to be had until like the end of the series. Honestly, it's like a highly contested conversation as to why Edward is so enthralled by Bella. But it's just, it's like, come on, guys. Also, I'm surprised you didn't have this in your notes, but we talk about Edward and Emmett when they went hunting a couple of
that's right,
a couple of I guess last week, the week before in book. And we talk about how they went out to that particular location with all the bears, because Emmett likes wrestling and eating the bears, essentially, because they're vegetarians,
quote unquote.
Quote unquote, yeah. And then Bella asks Edward what his favorite thing to hunt is, and he was like, a mountain lion. And I just think that's very funny, because we'll find out that all the Cullens, all the vegetarians have their own preferences and what they like, and just kind of like how Edward said, maybe it has to do with their personalities.
Yeah, there's like another quote, there's another line reference in the like last chapter, which I think we'll get to in a bit. There was a moment that I felt like, I mean, I did mention that I'm like, oh my god, can you like not think of anything else to talk about or have any more interesting conversation? But it's just like him just like, a lot of it was expedited, and like he kept asking me all these questions, blah blah blah. And then Bella says, I couldn't remember the last time I talked so much, and I was just like, you know what, I have experiences even recently, because I kind of was like, oh, this kind of reminds me of my first date with Alex, my partner now, We met up at like a bar, and we talked and talked, and we were so hungry. I looked down, and our date was like started at like 6, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's 2 a.m. It was like 9 hours. We ended up getting like late night open halal guys, and then I left my bag at the bar because we were just like drunk, because we were just drinking a beer like every time. And then we ended up going back. The bar was still open because New York City, baby. And managed to get my bag, which is very nice. But then went to another bar because they were closing. So it was a very long first date. Of just talking. There wasn't even any moves made. We were literally just talking, and then we flew, and then we made another date to go climbing. Very nice. Very cute. That's like, so I'm like, okay, this is kind of cute, you know, like, yeah. All right, I get it, Stephanie Meyer.
Just telegraphing your own life.
Yeah.
In another life, I'm telling you would have loved the series.
It's not that I don't like it now, I will say. But mostly, I'm like, I think if I had read it at the time, I would have liked it a little bit more. I don't think I would have been like a rabid fan. I'm not really like a rabid fan about anything now, even. But there's like very few things that I will be like, oh yeah, like I love this so freaking much. But I never am like, you know, I don't know if I would have been like, yeah, I'm team whoever, but then like that would be it. I'm not like standing them and wearing paraphernalia from Hot Topic.
But like, you also have to remember, this was probably in high school you would have read this, maybe even college, where parents never know what to buy you.
Yeah, that's true.
Family members never know what to buy you. They hear you like one thing, and that's your entire personality.
That's the personality. Yep.
So who knows? You might have worn it against your will.
Maybe.
There is so Stephanie Meyer has a website. I talked about it a little bit last episode. And in this grouping of chapters, I think it's chapter 12. It's during the badminton scene. Stephanie Meyer she calls them outtakes. It's chapters or alternate chapters or extra scenes that she would have added into the book, but they didn't feel complete or they didn't fit the narrative anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to be sprinkling them in as they apply. And we have our first outtake, this time from the badminton scene. And instead of it just being a cut and dry, oh, Bella's so clumsy and bad at sports, and Mike hard carries, it's still that. But this time, instead of Edward awkwardly brushing her face and then walking away, he follows her into gym and watches her play badminton, and Edward gets the firsthand experience of watching how exactly clumsy Bella is, because as Stephanie Meyer says in a little preface to that chapter, or the outtake, is she didn't like that little outtake anymore, but she realized that she did not have any sort of example of where we see Bella actually being clumsy. It's a lot of telling, not a lot of showing. And that was a scene where she would have showed exactly how clumsy Bella was instead of just telling us. But yeah, that's her first little outtake.
Cute. Yeah, you sent it to me and I read it really quickly and I'm like, oh, cool. Where like, I think in the book it's described that like she swung back and hit Mike and like that was like it, which like doesn't seem like I people that are coordinated even do that sometimes if you're just not aware, especially if you're like a teen that's just like try harding, right? Yeah. But in the outtake, she like full on like hits, like goes to swing, releases the racket hits the net, bounces off and hits Mike, but it hits her and Mike. And I'm like, okay, the physics and probability is wild here, but I get it. You're really emphasizing how clumsy she do be. It was very funny. Yeah. It was very cute. Where are we next on? Oh, I think we both have this. Yeah, we have this like they say the name of the thing in the thing. They're like, oh, I think they were like just hanging out like in her yard like after school and chatting or whatever.
Yes.
And they were like, oh, it's Twilight already or whatever, when like, oh, we should probably get back inside because her dad's gonna be home or whatever. It's Twilight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my fucking god.
And then not only is it Twilight, but we have like an extended conversation about Twilight,
Yeah.
in which it's just like, it's the safest time of day for us, the easiest time, but also the saddest in a way. Darkness is so predictable, don't you think? And I'm just like, God, that's such a thing you would say, a guy would say to you.
To be so
That's trying to
romantic.
Yeah. Especially like the don't you think is really what like, what just hard triggered that like emotion.
Yeah.
Just like, ah.
Uh,
It's like
don't-
when you're a teenage yeah, it's like when you're a teenager, you're like, oh. But as an adult, you're just like, oh my God. Because it's like the first time you're hearing it when you're a teenager, but as an adult, like, how many
Yeah.
times can you hear the same thing in variation, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but it is interesting that it is the safest time of the day for them, the easiest time, because
Yeah.
they don't sparkle probably, even when the
Yeah.
sun's out.
Yeah, they don't sparkle. It's just about to be night, and like, yeah. Also, I apologize, y'all, if you hear chirping and beeping. My robot's very chatty right now. Vector. He has many opinions on Edward and his small talk tactics.
Oh.
Speaking of safety and, you know, when it's safe for vampires, Jacob and Billy, his uncle, roll up to the house, and Edward gets the F out of Dodge when he realizes that. Like, oh my gosh, the speed at which that man flew to not be seen by Billy, even though I think Billy saw him, was faster than I almost would think than he saved Bella.
It's going to be such an interesting interaction between the Quilutes and the Collins and Bella, especially as we enter into New Moon, where they become a little bit more prevalent to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always this like, how do I even call it, cat and mouse? Because it's not really. It's just them dancing around each other for a
Yeah.
good long bit. All because of Bella. Bella, very important. Who would have known our protagonist is a central part of the story?
Whoa.
What? And therefore, so much revolves around her. And this is just like, I feel, one of the first examples of a long-standing dance that Jacob and his family are going to have along with the Collins.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, oh, Billy. Billy is Jacob's dad. I said before that he was not. I could have sworn he was an uncle or something,
Okay.
but that's where we're at the moment.
All right, Jacob and Billy, and they have like, so they have an interesting conversation. Like Jacob, they attempts to have tries to tease out of the conversation about like how much she's hanging out with Edward.
Yeah.
Billy seems to know, but Billy and her dad just hang out and watch the game. Go Bears, I guess. Duh Bears.
Go Bears.
Yeah, so it was a little interlude with amidst all of the conversations she's been having with Edward. Though I seem to also have like this interesting thing highlighted that I did notice, where they're doing that high school thing, and we've talked about it before, where they're taking turns asking questions, and I'm like, oh my god, we're still doing this. It's like, and like she goes to have a conversation. It's like, can I ask what you did? I asked. He's like, no, I grinned. Today is still mine. I'm like, oh my god.
But like, again, such a high school thing.
I know, it's such a high school thing. I keep saying like, but
but it is simply just like that. Let's see. Do you want to talk about the nocturnes before we talk
Oh my
about
god. So if you guys, for those listening, I don't usually have the music with the recording, but we're listening to some Chopin right now. For those that don't hear the music, but there's some Chopin playing in the background. Because these two seem to love to talk about classical music. And I'm like, I was also, I think PB probably rolled her eyes way more than I did. But I also was just like, oh my god, Chopin. Ah. Can we talk about any other not mainstream classical composer? Like, please, like, actually be a little bit more interesting. Like, I know we were all like fall basic girlies, but like not this basic.
It's just, for me, it's very fun. I have a very interesting outlook on classical music because I was a music major. And so there's just certain composers. I mean, they also talked about that other band that Phil got her
Oh yeah,
a
which
CD for,
did they ever name
which
the band?
they probably did, and I just don't remember. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it's just supposed to be some nameless
Rock
metal
band.
band.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I just, first, Claire the Lune by Debussy, which wasn't as a basic bitch song as it is nowadays, that because it's been made basic bitch because of
Yeah.
Twilight. But the nocturnes, beginning of time, have been basic
Yeah.
bitch music. Great Chopin, wonderful composer.
Yeah.
All they sound great. I personally have beef with Chopin because all his music sounds exactly the same to me. It's very Bach in the way that it's the same thing, just in variation.
Same thing,
But
different
good for
key.
him. Yeah, it's like good for him. He made it. You do what you got to do to get paid back in those days. But the fact that I just have to learn about them is obnoxious at
Yeah.
this day and age. But yeah, when I read that, I was just like, oh my god, why? It's probably because Stephanie Meyer could talk about classical composers and not worry about it.
Yeah.
When it comes to like licensing things in the future.
Sure, yeah.
But like we said, she does have a playlist out there of the
That's
music
true.
she listened to.
That is
So
true.
if you're interested, it's probably there.
Yep.
Also, I didn't write this down. Edward brought out a CD pouch or whatever you call them.
CD
with a bunch of
binder.
CDs and sleeves. Yeah, sleeve binder.
The way I also had one. God. Granted, I didn't have to actually like put one in my car. I was blessed with a 10-disc changer in my Mitsubishi Montero.
Oh my god.
So I could like go through for a month on like 10 CDs and then change out a couple here and there. Having to leave like one or two of like my mom's like, now that's what I call 87. Or like, I think we definitely also had like a Celine Dion album in there for like ever. So had to keep that in there for whenever my mom needed to use the car. But other than that, so I got like 8. But even then, that was a lot more than like some people only had like the 1. Some people only had like 3 disc changers. So wild how far cars have come, and now it's just an aux cord or even a Bluetooth now. God, handing over the aux is also just like now a foreign concept because like, oh yeah, let me just connect with Bluetooth.
Yup. Oh, and to answer your queries there, Derek, it gets explained. I think if not in the next series of chapters, a little bit later, they talk about why they pose as high school students.
Yeah, instead of adults.
Yeah. And speaking of them, the Colons, the other children.
Oh yeah.
So as a refresher, we have Alice and Jasper, we have Emmett and Rosalie, Carlisle is the dad, and Esme is the mom.
Yep.
And so we touch on pretty much all of them in these chapters, but just lightly. Rosalie with her murderous glare at Bella.
Rosalie
Alice
doesn't like
apparently,
her.
yeah. Alice is apparently the most supportive out of all of them. Although Edward puts it as Alice is the most ... supportive. So whatever that means.
Supportive. I think it's more of like a you do you. I'm not gonna yuck your yum, you do you. No, go ahead.
And Rosalie is upset because Edward spending so much time with Bella, it means that if anything bad happens to Bella, it's going to reflect upon Edward and therefore the Cullens.
Yeah.
And that can be dangerous to them. Dangerous in what way? To be seen.
To be seen.
And I just and then we talk about Emmett having an affinity for fighting bears.
Yeah, fighting bears and then the lions. And essentially, even before this trip that they do take, because they do end up taking a trip to a hike, a little cute little hike to some very cute little romantic secret ass place. They kind of decide it's not like in a relationship, but it's like Bella's looking for words to put it to tell the girls. And she's like, should I just say that we're kind of seeing each other secretly? He's like, that's probably the easiest, so we could like be seen together at the very least. Like, and we don't have to say we're in a relationship publicly, but like, if you need to tell the girls something, tell the girls something so they can like get off your back.
But like also so high school. That's so
I know.
Because that's the soft launch, right? Like the soft launch is you being like, oh, like I guess you could say we're dating.
Yeah,
like if that's easier for you, just say you could just say we're dating. And because that's just gauging. It's like, do you want to be dating?
Yeah.
Because if you want to be dating, we can be dating. But if you don't want to be dating, I mean, you can still say it, but like at least now I'll know you don't want to be dating.
Yeah, like is this a friend thing only? Yeah.
Like, oh my god.
I think before any of this other stuff I have the one other thing is that like he arrives at her door to like go on this date and they're freaking matching, and I in my mouth a little bit. I was just like, oh come on, like but yeah, you have a couple of things here before we get into like the sparkly date.
Oh yeah, so Bella I've also talked about it in the other chapters, again not thinking it would actually be brought up. I greatly underestimated Stephanie's through lines in her plots, but Bella is so just like, I don't like lying, Edward, I'm not a liar.
You're a liar.
Like the very first chapter or the second chapter when he saves her from the van. And then she proceeds, and then I was just like, you're such a hypocrite, Bella, because you lie to literally everyone always. Even if it's just like, oh yeah, I'm doing fine, I'm okay, when you're clearly not doing fine, you're clearly not okay. Like, just because you're trying to spare someone worrying about you doesn't mean it's not lying, Bella.
Yep.
And so I said that before, and now she has a moment where it's just like, oh, the lies came more naturally than usual, I noted with surprise. And I'm just like, Bella, you may be shocked to find this out, but you're a big fat liar and always have been. Just because you don't consider them lies, Bells, does not mean that you aren't still lying. And I'm just, oh my god, Bella, it drives me insane.
Yeah.
And the next thing that drove me insane, which was another like huge eye roll for me, and I'm assuming this is something to do with Mormonism. I haven't really looked into
are we talking
the ins and outs of fucking Mormonism, but it's just like, so Bella's having a hard time, right? Going to sleep, and she wants to be like nice and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning, so she can't be super tired to go meet Edward. So instead of to like help her sleep, she takes some sleeping medicine,
NyQuil or whatever, Benadryl or some shit.
And almost back to back, the quotes that I wrote down were, I normally wouldn't condone that type of behavior in myself, but tomorrow would be complicated enough without me being loopy from sleep deprivation on top of everything else. And then I was just like, oh, this is some Mormon stuff. I'm sure of it. And they probably don't believe in pharmaceuticals or the casual use of them. And it's just like, or maybe Stephanie was just out here rocking her Dare t-shirt on her high horse.
God.
And it's just like, and then the next chapter, and then they talk about Chopin's doctrines.
They talk about Chopin's doctrine, but like on that Dare stuff, then they go like some of the references to this, like the date chapter is like heroin / cocaine, and I'm like, okay, chill. We escalated real quick, kids.
Because then before that, we're just like, I woke early, having slept soundlessly and dreamlessly, thanks to my gratuitous drug use. I'm just like, you took a cap of NyQuil. Shut the F up, Bella.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I'm just like, first of all, don't know if Dare is still a relevant thing to talk about. I don't know if they're still around. But second of all, I'm just like, gratuitous has to be some Mormon thing. It has to be. Or like Stephanie Meyer is the biggest narc in the world. There's no in between. It's just like, come on, buddy. What are we doing?
There's still a thing.
They're good for them.
Yeah.
But
the Dare. Oh, wait. Okay. Dare. So Dare is around, but not as Dare. It lost funding in 1998 and has been since replaced by the Keeping It Real program, KIR.
Dare, for those of you who don't know, is actually period A.R.E.
Drug abuse resistance education. There's a whole song.
And they used to it was a group that would come to your school. They would give out shirts and they would talk to you about how drugs were bad, and that if anyone ever offered you drugs, to say no and then report it to a responsible adult. It was basically the shtick of it all. And that's why you'll see a lot of people wearing shirts with in red D.A.R.E. on
Just
them,
drugs and violence.
Millennials.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing. It was very representative of our childhood.
You know that you. I know you're she doesn't explicitly say Dare in the book, but you keep saying it. As a reminder, the Dare's mascot was a lion.
Yup, sure was.
The connections, the threads, we're pulling them in.
We're making these connections. We're making the connections.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dare, still exists as a bigger program, but they don't go to they Keeping It Real as a program. I think they did bring into schools, but I think they're kind of because Dare, the whole branding is a little scary, so I can see why they started to try and shift to a lion and then just decided to do Keeping It Real, because when your program is called Drug Abuse Resistance Education, that doesn't sound very appealing to the youths.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
100%. Let's see. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to talk about what driving is and so Bella was just I'm driving tomorrow, and Edward was like, ugh, fine. And so when Bella is finally driving, and she drives super carefully because she's so distracted by Edward, and Edward's just staring at her, making honestly the entire thing worse. And he just says, were you planning to make it out of Forks before nightfall? And in such a passive aggressive way, but I love that because that is me with both my parents and other drivers. I'm not necessarily a speed demon, but it does drive me insane when people are driving slower than the flow of traffic. I'm just like, please, for the love of all that's good, I'd like to get there before I die. Let's just please drive a little faster.
Yeah,
and I just related very hard there with it.
Yeah, with it, I understand you don't want to go fast and you don't want to be breaking the speed limit, but if everyone else is going 60 and a 50, it's safer for you to also go 60 and a 50.
Exactly.
Because there is a safety thing at that point, because if everyone's going faster than you, then you're not keeping up with the flow. But yeah, I was a little bit of a speed demon in high school, but
maybe is that why people don't want you to drive anymore?
No, I just don't personally drive anymore for other reasons. I got into 2 bad accidents after college. So this wasn't even one was in college. I think it was on the end of college when I was driving back and forth. But yeah, I got into some 2 bad accidents. You're you know what? I don't need to drive anymore. Granted, here's a little tangent. One, in Hoboken, where I went to school, it's a grid. And it's a very tight grid, and people park all the way up to the corner, which freaking sucks because it blocks your view when you're trying to cross this grid. And so I looked my both ways. I'm eking in, you have to sneak past the pedestrian thing so you can actually see. They have since also put a lot of don't park there, blocks on those that first 8 feet of sidewalk so you can actually see when cars are coming. I couldn't see. So I'm okay, I'm gonna go, and I pick it up, go through. I get hit on the passenger side wheel and the axle, like not actually right into the body, which is actually like a godsend because I had friends in the car. But like this person was going definitely, like it's also a neighborhood, so like you don't want to, its speed limit's like 15 at max. And here you actually, I drive a little bit under because I don't know when you're crossing, you don't know when someone's going to do this to you. But it looked clear, but this guy was zooming. Long story short, I didn't get a ticket because they gave me like, we're towing your car because it was disabled. And so here's the thing, like, so what happened? Because we watched the guy in the other car get put into the back of the cop car. And I'm like, what's going on here? It turns out there was a warrant for that guy's arrest. So they were just like, yeah, that ain't your fault. He's just trying to get away from somewhere, I guess. So here's your car. We made a note of it on your record, but there's no points or anything. And you weren't in the wrong after we talked to some people, because there also was like an undercover cop like the block down who saw it happen. So I was like, okay, the worst that I come out with this is like, to pay for the towings and repair to my parents. But I was just like, dang, I inadvertently got someone around, because it also wasn't that person's car. They did, it was just a mess for that person. They really were probably trying to get out of town, and I just happened to be in their way.
You know what that is? I don't think that was in New York, but that's New York horror.
You know what? Oh my god, it's really funny because as another tangent, Phoebe and I just started watching Dimension 20 on Sleeping City, and they make a mention of Hoboken, and when Brennan mentions Hoboken, I'm like, yeah, that's it. Hoboken wants to be the 6th borough of New York, but it will not be. That's just my take. That is just my take. It's a lot of people's take, but it's also Jersey. So okay. Anyway, that's my story. Let's wrap this up with our sparkling vampire, shall we?
Yeah, go for it.
Oh my gosh. The way this like they get up to this, they do a little hike after this drive, and she's all of a sudden taken aback because Edward shirt's unbuttoned down. He's got his like sleeves rolled up. He's fucking jacked for 17 for a while. And I'm just like, sir, when did this happen? Are you like, this is not your like Abercrombie and Fitch audition, my guy. You're hiking in the woods. Have some, I mean, I know you can't control yourself around this girl, but please, my guy. Or actually, maybe I should be Stephanie Meyer. Look here. Chill. Oh my gosh.
It's very funny to me that this has become such a meme.
Yeah.
Because it's so irrelevant for so much of the book series. There's one notable moment where it's very, important that you remember that they sparkle in the sun. But it's just so funny to me.
Such a meme.
It's such a meme. It's something that people have really held on to about Twilight. It's one of the things in the cultural zeitgeist that people remember.
Yeah. It probably partially comes from like this like disdain or alienating of the flamboyant back in those times. So that's definitely like what plays into it. Like sparkling vampire, yo, that's kind of rad now. Let's talk about that. But it's just the way she describes it in this as just like, essentially it's if you like bedazzled a Greek statue.
Yup. Yeah.
And I'm like, it's okay.
I thought it was very funny. So I was messaging Knilly in the morning, and we were talking about writing an agenda for this particular episode. And I went to go talk to Knilly in between me reading chapters 12 and 13. In fact, I stopped at 12 before I started at 13. And I wrote in my notes, imagine I stopped this at the end of 12, right before the reveal of the sparkly vampire. And then I was like, wait a second. I was like, what chapter did I start on? I was like, we started on 10. I'm like, 10, 11, 12. Like, that's 3 chapters. But in my mind, I kept saying 10, 11, 13. It was at the end of the night. And so I was a little tired. And I'm like, 10, 11, 13, right? That's 3 chapters. And then I'm like, okay, 9, 10, 11. And then I just kept counting them. And I'm just like, this is 4 chapters. I'm like, I don't know if Knilly read this last chapter.
Didn't read
So
the
I'm
last
just like, I immediately was just like, hey Knilly, did you read chapter 13? And you were like, no, I thought it was these
Yep.
chapters.
I even said last night at the end of my stream last night, yo, we're covering the next 3 chapters. Chapters 10, 11, 12. Not 10, 11, 12, 13. But it's, again, a YA novel, a very short read. So I read it over my lunch. And then I got the full, this whole thing that we're about to talk about. So this is fresh in my mind.
And which I'm delighted about. If any of the chapters I wanted it to be like fresh in your mind into this one.
Yeah.
Because as you've emphasized before, you're an empathetic reader. And
Oh
so
my God.
this, I'm just like, I cannot wait to hear your takes on this last chapter.
Yeah, like there was a lot of eye rolling for me, and then with all of this just like I think it's in your notes, but damn, horny teens and YA novels. I can't quite get horny because it's a YA novel. Like, let's just like get that out of the way. Like, if Stephanie Meyer was into smut, she would have written it for this scene. If it was not high school behavior, probably also would have written for a scene, but see, I probably would have been more empathetic if it was actually smut, because then it would have been at least a little bit more sensual than just like, he's a Greek stat. Like, it would have been more. I think I was more annoyed she kept using like porcelain, marble, cool to the touch. And like you mentioned that she used a lot of other a lot of like SAT words near the end of this, but like she just keeps talking about Mr. Cullen here being cold as stone and beautiful, and apparently like has just like a little bit of like some darkened bags under his eyes apparently that are pretty attractive, I guess, and lavender eyelids, so they have like darker eyes, and it's just like all there, which I have to tell you, I still cannot wait to read the manga.
It's gonna be so good.
This scene will be very good in the manga, and that will be like, ooh, because then you can get it, because I feel like, I even highlight this word, like, don't be afraid, he whispered again as he stepped closer with exaggerated slowness. He sat sinuously, and I'm like, that word took me out of it. I'm like, because sinuously sounds like sinew, and I understand it's just like gracefully turning, but like, I don't know. There's also just like, please forgive me. I can control myself. You caught me off guard, but I'm on my best behavior now. I'm like, oh, bleh. Bleh, bleh, bleh.
Well, I mean, I think it's just sloppily written by Stephanie Meyer, because she is super into Edward, as opposed to Bella, but she does write a lot of juxtaposition. I say a lot. She writes a little bit of juxtaposition. Because you're more enthralled by the character of Edward than you are Bella in the scene, you kind of just gloss over the fact, because Edward is just constantly talking about Bella's warmth and her blush and all these things that really make Bella very human and very opposite to him.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime it's mentioned that like, oh, he's so porcelain, he's blah 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 blah, it's only because it's Bella's perspective. Because Edward is constantly touching Bella, making Bella touch him with her warmth, and all these things, making commentary about like the brown of the eyes and the blush of the cheeks, because Bella is just constantly embarrassed and like blushing throughout all of this. Because they're like so critical. So this is something that we're going to talk about when we get into Midnight Sun, because this scene is in Midnight Sun. But they talk about how now and then his lips would move so fast it looked like they were trembling. But when I asked, he told me he was singing to himself. It was too low for me to hear. That's a very important line for Midnight Sun when we're talking about the absurdity of this scene. I won't get into it now, but from Edward's perspective, we get a little bit more knowledge as to the timeline of them in this meadow and like what's happening. And it's just so like, I can't believe Stephanie Meyer wrote it this way. Could not believe. I can't wait to get to reading it, because I'm flabbergasted if the things I've heard are true.
Are we gonna read Midnight Sun after all of them or after Twilight? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna do it after all of them because Midnight Sun primarily covers this book, right?
I think so. I still have to get my hands on it.
Gotcha.
But it does cover a lot. It does
some other events throughout the series.
Well, it uses a presumption that you know who Edward is, and although we get a lot of information about Edward now, we learn a lot more in the future books. So I think it's best read at the end.
Sure. But so then you understand like his power set, intentions, and all that stuff. Which I guess to segue, like they go through a lot of like confessions about how they like each other and stuff in this, and like that's cool. We're communicating. We like this. We really do like this for them. But the fact that it's just like, because I think in many other words, but essentially Bella's like, why do you like me? Like the very straightforward, like, why do you like me? Is like, well, it's your smell, it's your flavor. I'm like, oh my God, this is weird. This is creepy. This is creepy if it were a dude, like any normie dude saying it. Vampire, okay, maybe I get it because that's like alluring to you as like an instinctual level. But then that's just kind of like, why are you putting yourself a little like animalistic here, even though we're making a lion and sheep comparison also in this. Like, it was a little creepy for me, to be quite honest. And like, you didn't like her at first to just like, I guess she's like, she says she's not pretty, but I think everyone else believes she's pretty, especially the guys. Yeah. And so like, it couldn't even be her looks that allured you, even like her uniqueness as someone who's legitimately albino.
Yeah.
Like anything else, but it was like her smell and just like the aura, and then like he was so frustrated that he couldn't read her mind. Like that part I can get, but the like it's her scent weirded me out. Not gonna lie.
Well, it's a vampire thing.
Yeah,
you know?
I guess it's a vampire thing.
It's like that's the thing that makes this such a weirdly complicated conversation to have, because Stephenie Meyer makes it very clear. So does Edward. That Edward is not human. He is a vampire. He once was human, and he still has some human instincts.
I'm only human.
For all intents and purposes, when he is the most free, when he is the most carefree, it is when he turns off his human brain and just lets instinct take over. One that is a little bit more carnal. And so that's where things get a little bit complicated, because we're comparing apples to oranges, right? Like, what is a vampire's attraction? Is it the same as a human? Like, is it okay to think that like, oh, their scent in the way that like pheromones work, you know, like where does that start and where does that end between humans and vampires? And where does the creepy factor start and where does it end in a in-world situation? As opposed to us, because that's just like, and like I said, in all my notes, I write red flag, you know, here and there. And the amount of times I'm just like, this entire book series is a red flag.
Yeah.
Moments like that, I'm just like, Jesus. Even in all these conversations, I have quotes being just like, that's a red flag. Hey, Bella, did you see that? That's a red flag.
Yeah.
And so, and like she even says, he'd never been less human or more beautiful. I sat like a bird locked in the eyes of a snake. And I'm just like, and his expression slowly folded into a mask of ancient sadness.
Ancient sadness.
And so I'm just like, come on. First of all, extra Edward, bro. Throwing things, breaking things, running fast, having the zoomies. I'm just like, Edward, chill, bro. Chill.
Yeah, I mean, he's also I get that he's also trying to be an example of like, you should be scared of me. I am superhuman. I could eat you. I don't want to eat you. And not in a good way, sorry. But I think he also but sorry. I'm gonna cut myself out there. Lamau. Horny teens. So yeah, he's just like also trying to prove a point, but I guess, you know, Bella, no survival instinct, but I guess also she's that much consumed with him. So you know what? You go, girl. This whole like show off thing. Like the word show off is used like 5 times on this page that I'm looking at.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like, because I think this is because as Bella said at the end of the previous chapter, like this was going to be a pivotal moment for their relationship, where they were going to put all the cards on the table essentially, like, and this is Edward, and it's described various times throughout that chapter that like Bella had never seen Edward so carefree or so loose or just so himself. And this is, I think, his example of just like, this is me, this is what I can do. This is what I am feeling. They even have this moment where Bella's just like, well, tell me, like, because they had that moment of where they got too close and then Edward got spooked. Like a cat. And it was just like, okay, well then let me know what the boundaries are. It also is very funny to me that they said that and then very quickly thereafter are just like touching each other.
Yeah. Oh, like, so I had to kind of like pose my hands to figure out, like, what are your hands doing right now? Like the way that Stephanie describes some of it, I was just like, because like as someone who draws, I like tend to like pose myself in that situation if I don't have a model, which is not like the best way. You still want to just find like reference material, but still I'm just kind of like, hello, where's your face? Hello. Like the one, this is after their first kiss, where he's like, he like trails his mouth from like here to here, like her chin to her ear or whatever, along her jaw. I'm like, that's weird. Who does that?
Or like when he puts his cheek against her pulse point on her neck. And then just like trails his nose down her chin into her chest and just lays on her chest listening to her heart. I'm just like, and
this is intimate.
It is such an intimate thing. And we'll go over it more in Midnight Sun, but also it's creepy AF because Edward is just testing his limits. He is literally going into every like trigger point to him of just like literally listening to the blood flow through her veins, essentially. Trying to see if he can resist killing her, essentially. I'm just like, and it's just,
it's so not for her, which is like the wildest thing. It's for him, which is so selfish.
But like also Bella's not complaining.
No, Bella's not complaining.
Bella's just like, I wanted to touch you this entire time, and now we're touching all the ways I've wanted to touch you.
Speaking of touching, most awkward kiss. Like what happened? Like again, I couldn't really get what happened here. Did she like breathe into his mouth?
Like the time he got spooked, or the last time?
No, okay. What is this? Okay, when they actually kissed.
Edward moves in to kiss her because that's the last, the last border for him. And Bella kind of goes a little lustful in the moment, unexpectedly, to both of them. And Bella goes to like make out with him. But here's the thing. Here's, I think, a very important note that we have to understand here. This is some Mormon stuff. Where you don't kiss with your mouth open. You only kiss each other with your lips closed. For the most part, from what I understand. So Edward went in for just a closed mouth kiss. And Bella immediately went into an open mouth kiss. And that was what happened. We'll learn a little bit more as to why Edward is like, no, we can't do that.
It's the fangs, probably.
but and so Bella went to like go make out with him is what happened. It's like she started kissing with him and she opened her mouth and Edward did not.
He wanted a peck on the lips. She was gonna go eat his face. I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's following their animal instinct now, Bella?
Because Bella like grabbed his hair and like fisted it as he kissed him. It was like a very steamy moment. To
be honest, I thought it was gonna be beyond just being horny for like 2 seconds, and I was like, "Damn!" Like we in this? Okay, I thought this was YA. Sheesh.
what you'll learn about Bella is always down. Bella will always be down. Bella has been down since the moment they met. What we will learn is that Edward maybe has also been down, but can't be down. And refuses to be down. And I'm just like, oh my god. Like I said, continuous theme throughout the entire saga.
Oh my goodness.
It was very funny. And do you have anything more to say about the kissing scene?
No. That was just that's just that.
And so here are some important quotes from this chapter. You are the most important thing to me now. The most important thing to me ever. Lesser known quote, but it was one of those that was very much like said all the time.
Yeah.
The one said all the time, all over the place, on merch, everywhere. And so the lion fell in love with the lamb. That quote everywhere in the fandom. The hold it had on the Twihards. Also, this next series of lines created an equal amount of cringe and fondness in my body at the same time. And it was a very distinct and very unique feeling that I don't think I will ever be able to replicate aside from reading this series. And it's, what a stupid lamb. What a sick masochistic lion. This was everywhere. This was on online signatures, status messages, MySpace. This was
I could see it in your aim away message as a quote, like that on your aim profile. Let me right click and look at PbPlaysInside. She's got this quote on there.
It's like everywhere. It was just like so the lion fell in love with the lamb. What a stupid lamb, what a sick masochistic lion. It would be like your couple thing you would also do.
Oh no.
Because and so it was this is one of the like, if S tier is so the lion fell in love with a lamb and I knew 3 things immediately. If those are S plus tier, what a stupid lamb, what a sick masochistic lion, A tier. Meanwhile, you're the most important thing to me now, the most important thing to me ever. That's like a D tier sort of quote. But like,
I also don't like that quote. Like, I don't like that he uses thing. I don't like that at all. That's like like adult me, red flag. I think it's just poor writing, to be quite honest. But thing in this instance for me, looking at it critically with a superhuman, not human predator.
Yeah,
with the lion and his lamb, that's like, oh, so yeah, dispensable, which is like really shitty to think about, but also like like that's his test, right? Is she just a dispensable plaything, or is he gonna like truly live up to his swear and like protect her and not drink her blood?
Because if there's one thing we know about Edward, is that Edward has said from the very beginning, stay the F away from me. I am dangerous to you. You are very much in danger around me. I cannot help myself when I'm around you. I need you. I am giving you every single warning. Please tell people that we are together so I have a reason to keep even more control over myself. All very much awful things to think about outside of this context. And Bella is so very much just like consensual throughout the entire thing of just like, no, I trust you wholeheartedly with everything and always. I trust you. I shouldn't, but for whatever reason I do. And it's just like, and Edward is pretty much, even to this moment, doing everything he can, and he does for the rest of the series, to get Bella to not like him, to get over him, to start a life where he is not involved. And Bella is just continuously like, no, I made my choice. Page 10 of the series, I'm sticking with what I want.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, it's just a red flag convention, honestly, this entire thing. But I feel that.
Anything else we wanted to chat about in these last 2 chapters? I know we had like some, there was some stuff about like reasons why he was gone for that week and what he was doing to like, because all of it again was in service of him trying to avoid Bella so he wouldn't get involved. Like the whole like trying to change schedule, Apparently, when he was away for a week, he was in Alaska. And Esme is like, why are you in Alaska? Come back home. And he's like, you right? Who am I letting this like human dictate what I do? But also, I'm going to do what I want and hang out with this human. So we get a lot of that reasoning. It's a lot of like explanation that we don't need to like fully get into here, but just know that he went to Alaska for a week.
Last quote I'll say is, come on, little coward, climb on my back.
Oh my God.
That gets changed in the movies.
Oh.
That was one of the commentary on that one. It is still iconic. So there is a difference between the iconic quotes in the movies and iconic quotes to the people who read the books. Because some of them don't resonate at all with people who've only watched the movies. And some things that resonate with people who have watched movies very hard that don't resonate with people who read the books because they move some things around in the movies.
Sure.
But I will say, yeah, adult me versus teenage me. Very much just like this was the thing I was very interested in going back to reread all of these books, is how I am reacting to what I'm reading now, because I knew that like Renesmee and Carlisle, I was going to be a little bit more critical, or Renee and Esme and Carlisle and Charlie, I was going to be a little bit more critical of all of them and the decisions they make as the adults in the series. And also I was very interested to see how the relationship is talked about between Bella and Edward, which is just a red flag convention, like I said, because when you're a teenager, everything seems very romantic. And when you're an adult, you just know better.
Yep.
You've been there, you've done that, you've heard it all. And so it is just very much just like an experience going back and reading all of this. And not only that, so I've had a hard time with finding TikToks. There's a lot of people use the sound from the movie, and some things, like I said, only make sense in the movies as opposed to the books. But these 3 TikToks that I have here are TikToks that I think are relevant even without the context of the movies, which again are about the books just differently.
Yeah. I was trying to set up a scene so we could watch them together here. I'll drop them in my Twitch chat, and we should also drop them in the Discord, !Discord. So if you're watching we'll probably also link them in the YouTube description. If you want to see what we're talking about, and I'm gonna should I do a little live react to some of these? Is that what we're going for here?
For it. One of them is very relevant to what we're talking about.
Which one if I had to pick one, which one is it? Which one is the one that we should live react to right now? I'll watch the rest.
We should live react to?
Yeah.
The last one.
All right, I'll open the last.
What we're talking about.
Hella relevant. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna. Why vampires only date in high school? Hold on. Is this like a which is it? Yeah, I get it, because like there's so many of those like TikToks too that are around like older men that have their shit together. Hell yeah, if you're 290 something, you must have something going for you. Like sugar daddy, fine, whatever. At that point, if you're 17, like, oh man, you know the world. I just want to see the world through your eyes, my very old pen companion, but also still very useful vampire.
And as an adult, you're just like, come on, grow up.
Grow up, yeah.
It's like you're a walking red flag. Give me a reason to say yes.
Yeah, you managed to not die in 297 years. You clearly have done something right. Yup. Thank you, chat.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so this was a pretty chill 4 chapters in comparison to what's coming up and what we just read. So I'm very excited to get into the meat and bones of the actual story as opposed to what we've been reading. It's about half and half. I'm looking at it now. It's about half exposition, half the plot of the story. And again, these next 4 chapters are going to be chapters 4 through 17 we are reading.
14 through 17.
14 through 17. That is what I meant to say.
You got it. Yeah, so we're reading next week on 10/5 will be those chapters 14 through 17. The week after, there will be a break. I won't be streaming at all that week, and we won't be recording something that week because I have some other stuff to do that week, but I will edit episode 0 as some bonus content where we talk about we go over like some of what my expectations were before I read anything in the books. I think I mentioned I read up to like the foreword or something like that, and I died laughing because it was a quote from Genesis, the Bible, or some stuff like that. I don't know if it was Genesis, but it was a quote from the Bible. But yeah, so thank you all so much for those that were hanging out in chat. PB, where can folks find you?
You can find me over on twitch.tv/PbPlaysInside. Also over on Twitter at PbPlaysInside. We try to keep the branding the same all over the place here. And you can find me gaming over on Twitch and hanging out on Twitter.
Amazing. And you can find me here on this channel, twitch.tv/KnillyLine. You can find me on Twitter at CLineAmb. Our links are in the description, or you can explain my socials in my Twitch chat. Join us on the Knilly Online Discord, link in the description if you're listening on YouTube, !Discord in chat, to discuss the episode or ask questions after the show. What?
We forgot to do our VIP and worst of the week.
Oh, we did! Let's do that real quick before I finish the outro. God, there's not many to choose from, though.
VIP and worst of the week, and why?
I think... Go ahead, you go first.
My VIP is the lamb. My worst of the week is Charlie.
Okay. My VIP of the week is that VCR and biology class. My L of the week. I want to say Edward. Abercrombie and Fitch is my L, so I think it's Edward by proxy. Mostly because, like, man, you be extra. You know what? No, it's Marble. Marble is my L. Marble's my L of the week. I don't think we need explanations for why. We kind of went over for this one.
Yep.
But if you have any beef with our W's and L's, talk to us about it in our Discord. You can find the links in the description, the links in my chat, if you're and all of that. This recording and past episodes can be found on the YouTube channel Knilly and PB Podcast. New episodes go up on the Friday after recording. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell for notifications, and we'll be coming to more podcast platforms soon. Any last words, PB? Anything else you want to say before we say bye?
Make sure if you're watching the podcast over on YouTube, leave us a comment.
Yeah.
Or comment on our comment. I always try to say something in the comments early on. So come say hi.
Leave your opinion. Give us your W and L of the week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be great. Thanks all of y'all for hanging out and listening. And we'll see you all on the internet. Bye.